Yo, Tom Fiddzy here with my review of Moon Knight episode 5. You know, when Disney Plus has the thumbnail of the last episode, that there's going to be a lot of secrets kept in this episode, and it was an awesome, information-packed episode. Really character-driven story. Really big question mark at the end of this episode as well, as to not just the rest of this series, but the rest of like Moon Knight in the MCU. We know that there's been no kind of talk of Oscar Isaac and Moon Knight coming back, and maybe we're getting some like hints of it here. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this episode. We were straight back in the asylum, and straight back, from the hippo reveal, we went straight into even more weirdness. Mark was back talking to Arthur Harrow, and I really liked how it worked in this, how the transition of like between the two characters talking to Harrow kind of worked. That was kind of like the representation of the room of who's in kind of control of that situation at the time. And just hearing them speaking, adding more kind of mystery of could they actually be like all in their head? But then obviously we know that it's not, but we get all of like the flashbacks, we get information about more of the Egyptian gods. They are gods. The Egyptian mythology is real in the MCU. They also pointed out that, they are just one of many, and that the Egyptian gods are kind of an ancestral soul spirit realm, where like the conscious mind goes to die, and it's one of many. I wonder how you're determined that you're going to go to that one. It seems like maybe it is kind of a little bit going to belief systems, because I like the fact that at the beginning of this is like, oh, haven't had many people here in a long time. Great character as well. So yeah, shows that, it's kind of, it's been a while. Things are kind of closed down a little bit. I'd love to know what they were doing during all of this time. But yeah, that's really cool. Shout out as well. They did a little shout out to the ancestral plane from Black Panther as well. So yeah, MCU setting up its gods and its god lore, ready for Gorr the God Butcher to come sweeping along, killing them all. I maybe expect Gorr to appear at the end of this series. Maybe it would be sad, but maybe holding a hippo head. Imagine that for the end of the series. Right, so yeah. The gods are real. We get a little hint of their realm. I loved the visuals of the boat going through the desert. That was really, really cool looking. The CGI on Taweret looked amazing. As I said, really good character, great voice. And yeah, just a fun character. I did like that fact that you could be like, oh, I don't know, she seems like a bit like ditzy and like not knowing what she's doing. But then obviously it's the fact that it has been so long, she's probably just been kicking back and relaxing, was not quite used to it, a little bit dazed herself into what's going on. I loved the stuff with the scales throughout the entire episode. I was like, well, obviously they're unbalanced because we know that there's a third personality in there, right? So you need that one to balance up the scales. And we don't get it. We have to wait another week for Jake Lockley and or whoever it is. And that now is giving me some speculation time. So yeah, I'll get to that a little bit later on. I really like how they kind of did the flashbacks. They set themselves up beautifully with, every room is like a memory, and they were just going around looking at the rooms. I love the fact that, he was running up the stairs and every floor is like a different memory. That was some really good stuff. We find out that Stephen has actually been around a lot longer, since Mark was a kid. There was a little bit of confusion there because it seemed like Mark jumped into the Stephen personality, so Mark didn't have to remember getting beaten, but it was Stephen the one who was getting beaten. But he was the one that was like, I remember my mum. I remember my mum as a good person. So yeah, that was a little bit weird, but that he would jump into that one, and really tragic, really sad. But yeah, just a little bit confused by that one little bit of kind of dialogue there. But yeah, it turns out Stephen has been around for a long time. I love the scene where very sad scene where Mark goes to the funeral of his mum, because we find out that the mum died and she was a terrible mother to him after he, by accident, got his younger brother killed by going into a cave that filled up with water really quickly. Very quickly, that cave. It should be boarded up, that cave. Anyway, a little bit of rain, it filled up like that. But, yeah, cave exploring. Dangerous. Take protective gear and seek professionals when you do that. Yeah, like, I like that scene, though, where they're at the funeral, and then you see the swap. You see how distraught Mark is, and Stephen's just there, and he's like, "Oh, bugger, where am I? I'm lost." And you're listening to him on the phone, and I'm not sure if everyone in the world is going to kind of get it, but it's a bit of a Londoner. I was just like, Stephen thinks he's still in London. He was like, it looks a bit like Mayfair in the background, but there's a very clear American fire hydrant. You very clearly see an American cab go past, and he's like reading off one of the road signs, and it's just an American like state or whatever it is. And I really like that. I really like that. I want to know what happened the rest of his day. Did Mark just let him wander around for ages? Or was he wandering around for a little bit lost, and then Mark took over and got him back, and then Stephen got shouted at for being late for work. So I thought that was pretty funny. I do just kind of want to see the adventures of Mark and Stephen more a little bit, but yeah, really, really like sad and kind of tragic upbringing. We got the Moon Knight origin story where Khonshu was there, and I don't think it was like, yeah, he kind of used him a little bit. You could argue that Khonshu was just like, oh, this guy's got a fractured mind. He's about to die. I'll use him as a thing. But as Mark said, what other option did he have? We got the hint there of the Bushman, just name only mention. I'm glad we didn't have to kind of watch every single one. I'm glad sometimes it was just like them standing there walking around talking about it. That was actually really cool, and amazing performances as well by Oscar Isaac. Pretty much like carrying this episode solo for the vast majority of it. The stuff with Harrow was powerful as well, but just Oscar Isaac's performance was fantastic. Doing both characters, both sides. Stephen this has some really funny moments when he finally remembered the muscle memory. There was some good stuff in there as well. And I just thought the kind of the backstory stuff was like very well handled, very well played, done in an interesting way. It wasn't, there were memories, but it wasn't just memories. It was all about balancing the scales, but I am just still a little bit like, I don't think sorting out them two things should have been enough, because we do know that there's that last sarcophagus. So let's talk about that, okay? Because the end of this episode, we find out that the sands all around in this like other god world, overworld, whatever it was called, that's like the Egyptian hell. You touch them sands and you're in it. You're stuck in them sands forever in Egyptian hell. Or you can go to the field of reeds, which actually looks quite boring. So just stuck in the middle of a field of reeds, and that's Egyptian heaven. At the end of this episode, Stephen fell off the boat and ended up in Egyptian hell. And then Frat was just like, oh, the scales have evened. The next thing you know, Mark is in the Egyptian heaven. He's in the reeds. And that's where it ends. Now, my theory here is, are they now both dead? Are they now both officially dead? And the body is now ready for Jake? Maybe? I guess, because we know there's still a third person in there. So, does that mean the body is now going to be Jake? Is that going to be the new Moon Knight? Is that why Oscar Isaac was all like, I'm not sure if I'm going to be coming back, as this character, because he's going to be coming back as a different character? Very interesting. Left us, in a really intriguing, cool place going into next week. I want it to be next week now. I want it to be next week now because, obviously, back to back. Moon Knight next day. We've got Doctor Strange, and then I'm pretty sure it's Obi-Wan. So it is gonna be Disney Plus, Field of Reeds next week. So really looking forward to that. But yeah, what is it gonna be? Is that coffin gonna open, and that's gonna be the one that takes over? That's what I'm fully expecting. I would watch all the way to the end of the credits to be like, come on, show it. Just show the door opening a little bit. Just and that's it. You see a hand come out. But no, didn't get any of that. So we are literally left unknown into the next episode. I'm sure there's going to be sky beams and lasers and purple energy everywhere. I think there was a pyramid with laser. Mr. Sunday Movies keeps going on about it. The pyramid with the laser. We haven't seen that. So that's obviously next week. And obviously the Moon Knight costume is going to be in it next week. So yeah, well, so I'm guessing Jake Lockley time and Rip Stephen and Rip Mark. If they do actually just leave them and that's it, they're dead now for the rest of the series, that'll be pretty commendable, I think. And or maybe they can kind of start slowly manifesting back. Maybe in a second series, you know, their faults and their memories start coming back into this new character. The possibilities are amazing with this series. I'm thoroughly enjoying it. Great episode. Few tiny little observations before I close up. I really liked it when they were in Mayfair, but not actually Mayfair, America. And they were like, oh, the boat stopped. And if you watch that scene again, you can see like the lampposts in the background kind of like wobbling. And everything else in the street is just kind of wobbling to indicate that this world is actually, it's inside the boat. That was a nice touch. If Harrow was really a real psychiatrist, don't leave very sharp pyramids just on your desk, because obviously people can pick them up and do bad stuff with it. Yeah, trying to think if there's any other little tiny details in this episode. We got a Simpsons reference, very Ned Flanders, another member of the Disney family in there, so they can say those Simpson references now. I've mentioned that there was the Black Panther shout out as well. You know, there's only been some small connections to the MCU, and that has actually been really, really appreciated. So yeah, I think that's about it. As said, once again, to recap, really enjoyed this episode. The visuals were great. I think they handled the flashbacks really well. Very intriguing ending. Disappointed that we didn't get the Jake Lockley reveal, but now more intrigued about that red sarcophagus. A big improvement from the last episode. I think the last episode was probably the weakest of the bunch. This is probably like my second favourite after the first episode, I would say. Yeah. But overall, series going very strong. Second to Loki for me. And there hasn't even been much Moon Knight, because Oscar Isaac's performance has been captivating. All right. I've been Tom Fiddzy. Let me know in the comments below. What are we going to get next week? Are we going to be in the Egyptian Field of Reeds? Check in then, and also for my Doctor Strange reviews. And I'll be doing the Obi-Wan stuff too. Bye!